A woman does not become a whore without a bunch of men helping her. I mean, even if you look at a woman's right to vote, which I'm not saying is necessarily, it is what it is. We have the right to vote, okay? Is it good that we do? And it is kind of unjust that women can vote and yet we're not at risk of the draft. Men do, and yet a woman can vote to send men to war. But that's true, yeah. But now we live in a world where men can get pregnant. You know, so, I mean, we're really obsessed.
Guys, allegedly. I've never met a guy that can get pregnant.
Who was ever overweight or bald or poor ever got married.
What's wrong with the bald?
But I mean, they do get married, they do get laid. I'm not saying it's
I am
easy
married.
now.
I do get laid. I have a child.
Listen, look at Joe
If
Rogan.
if you're bald, you still have a chance.
Yes. Now we want men to be in touch with their feminine side, which I think is a little absurd, frankly. I don't think a man needs to be really in touch with his feminine side at all. Well, again, it pisses me off when they're liberal, the liberal white woman. It pisses me off when they're Democrat. It pisses me off, that we're so easily, it seems, emotionally manipulated. And I think that's why most of the social justice warriors are women. Do your sister a favor and don't post the bikini photo, because you get hurt when your guy, when you're in a relationship, looks at the bikini photo. So just don't post it. And certainly a woman who's married shouldn't. Basically, anytime a woman is safe in this world and not being attacked, it's because of men. Yeah. It's because of men either not attacking her or stepping in to intervene, which is obviously far more rare. We owe all of our safety to men.
So our mutual friend AJ Hurley described you as she's a communist, she's an LGBT activist, and she's a trans species. So that's how I knew I have to get you on my show.
Formally, all those things, maybe.
So let me give you a proper introduction. So Natalie Beisner, right?
Yes.
Natalie Beisner is a former actress that became a pro-life activist. She stands firmly against murders of the unborn. Born and raised in California, Ms Beisner was once a Democrat supporter, but in the recent years completely changed her political stance. Now Natalie is a conservative political and cultural commentator that stands pro-gun, pro-life, pro-America, and against abortions, feminism, and communist ideas. Natalie is a woman of God. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to start with this kind of quiz. So I'm going to tell you my values and I'm going to tell you where I stand, and you're going to tell me what party do I align with, right? So I love my family, and I believe that the government should protect it physically from criminals, pedophiles, and perverts, financially from high taxes and inflation, and emotionally from mentally ill. I have a big problem with big corporations poisoning our food with chemicals just to make more money. I have a problem with billionaire privilege that want to dictate how we all should live, eat, breathe, and think. I am pro-country that I live in right now. I don't care much about other countries. I think life starts at the conception. I don't care what you do in the bedroom as long as you don't scream about it at my children's face. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. Who am I?
Not a Democrat.
Why not?
I mean, they hold, certainly the modern day Democrat Party holds none of those values. And we've seen it in the last 4 years, especially.
And you realized that in 2020?
I realized that in 2020.
What were your values before 2020?
I don't even know if I knew what my values were, but I was certainly not, I was not a believer, and I was not politically informed at all. I just went.
An atheist?
I vacillated between atheist and agnostic, but yeah, certainly not like a walk with Christ.
Pro-life or pro-choice?
I would have called it pro-choice. Now I'd call it pro-abortion movement. I reject this idea of pro-choice. But yes, I would have called myself pro-choice at the time.
Freedom of speech?
I think I would have been for freedom of speech, actually. Yes. Yeah.
Both sides. Left and right.
Because see, I was not like a zealot. What I thought, and I think a lot of people my age, I'm a millennial, a lot of people in Southern California, I was an actress. I just thought if you were a compassionate person, you voted Democrat because you cared about minorities and you cared about women. And why shouldn't, everyone be able to be married? And that was the extent of it. So I wasn't like one of these crazy, blue hair screaming, shut everything down. But I didn't really know what was going on. I was just like, vote for the president every 4 years, Obama, Hillary, and leave it.
TDS?
Oh, yeah.
You had one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me what happened in 2020.
Well,
so you became a woman of God, pro-life, no TDS, you're a Republican?
I'm a Republican. I call myself a Christian first, then a conservative, and then a Republican. I am sometimes Not fond of calling myself a Republican because I do, of course, have qualms with the Republican Party at times, but conservative first and foremost.
What happened in 2020?
Well, in 2020, March 2020 happened, and I lost both of my jobs overnight. And never saw those jobs again.
What were those jobs?
I was just a waitress, and I was an after-school tutor. But those jobs, they weren't careers, but they were important to me. I had left acting a couple years prior, and in fact, one of the reasons I had left acting, it's not the sole reason. But one of the reasons I had left was this intense push for racial diversity above everything. I saw it first in acting, in Hollywood, in theater, and then it spread outward,
But you're a woman. How did you see that? I mean, if you were a white male, yeah, maybe you could feel that, but you're a woman.
Well, but I think there's a hate. I think white men get it worse, straight white men, but there's a hatred for white women too. Especially if you're not on the right side of things. And at the time, I was, but it was so clear that theater, Hollywood, they only wanted to tell one story, and it wasn't mine. I would see unnecessary pushes for racial, skin tone diversity, which I don't take issue with, but if it's like your only goal, and obviously a lot of the plays that started coming out, because I love theater, they were anti-Trump, and it was just one side, one narrative, and that's not what storytelling is about. That's not what art is about. And at the time I was anti-Trump, but I still didn't like it. And I don't like the phrase white privilege because it doesn't match my experience. I think we're all privileged to live in America, but it has nothing to do with skin color. And my family has struggled quite a bit. It's all relative, but we've struggled a great deal, especially financially. And so I felt pushed out of Hollywood, and it's also just a hard road to go down. But so that had stayed with me for a couple years. And then when COVID came around, I followed all the rules. I did everything that was asking me. I didn't see family. I had a grandmother dying needlessly alone, not from COVID, but alone because of the response to COVID. And she did end up dying, alone.
Literally?
And it had nothing to do with COVID. It just had to do with people could not visit her because she was in a home, and she died alone. And she wasn't in her right mind either. So I don't even know if she knew why she was alone.
That's horrendous.
It is. And, I didn't go anywhere but the grocery store, wore a mask. I did it all because I was a liberal, and also we had never been in this situation before, and I was scared and I wanted to do my part. But when George Floyd died and the unrest happened in Los Angeles and around the nation, and I was told that I could go out and be part of these protests or riots, but I couldn't go to work, that blew my mind. It felt like such a slap in the face because I had been following all the rules, and at that point it was, June, and we had been going through this since March. There had been no talk in Los Angeles about maybe getting back to work. It feels like a slap in the face to be called non-essential when your job is essential to you. And so then for this unrest to come about, and then I saw a lot of the medical community supporting it and the politicians and certainly Republicans as well, but LA just milked it for every drop that it was worth. And it went on beyond that. We were in a mask mandate for 2 straight years in Los Angeles. And we had vaccine passports for 6 months where, you couldn't go into a bar or restaurant. So it's not like it was a little blip on the radar. And so summer 2020, I walked away from the Democrat Party because I had thought that this was the party for the little guy, which is what I consider myself, for the underdog, for the working class, for the struggling. And I knew I wasn't the only one struggling. But whenever I brought it up about the disparity between the response to COVID and the response to the BLM unrest, I was all my liberal friends called me racist and selfish. I was told racist. Well, because there was this weird narrative at the time about how the only people who are upset about lockdowns are wealthy white women, who want to go get their hair and nails done. And it was like you weren't giving due credence to the Black experience in America. You shouldn't be concerned with going to work, or people were dying. And then they tried to do that narrative where minorities were dying more from COVID. So if you had issue with the lockdown or any of the response to COVID, you didn't care about the disparity in racial deaths to COVID. So it was a very weird, they tried to tie it together. And of course, now in retrospect, but we all knew it at the time, we were right. This response to COVID did more harm than good. And it wasn't even necessarily that I couldn't go to work or that I couldn't do these things. It was that whenever I brought it up, they refused to acknowledge that I might have any honest reason for disagreeing. And I had agreed with all the other liberal ideologies, but I just wanted to go to work, and I needed to go visit family. I needed to get my life back. And very early on, it was really clear that a lot of us were going to survive this. And I think people forget that sometimes. We knew early on that, it only affected a very small minority of people. And we knew it didn't spread outdoors, and we knew it didn't really spread on surfaces. And yet LA never course corrected. We just kept shutting down playgrounds and shutting down jungle gyms and shutting down the outdoors. And we had the weird plastic dividers. It's as we learned more about the virus, we never course corrected in LA, as evidenced by the 2-year-long mask mandate. And then vaccine passports, well after I walked away. I mean, the vaccine passports started late 2021 and I walked away summer 2020. So, I mean, it was crazy. And that's what opened the door for me to start listening to voices that I honestly didn't even know existed. And if I had known they existed, I probably would have very much disagreed with them.
Like what?
Like Ben Shapiro, Dennis Prager come to mind. And I mean, I also realized at the time, it seemed to me like Trump was the only one talking about opening the nation. It's to someone who didn't know anything about politics, it seemed like only Trump was. And I hated him so much, but I was more desperate to figure out what was going on. Like, why has the world gone mad? And so I started looking into him and realized I've been lied to about him. So that was like another domino in the thing. I saw the fact that he didn't say there were very fine people on both sides. And for 3 years, and I'm an intelligent person, but for 3 years, I had actually thought he did say that because that was what I was shown.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it's like, if he's as bad as you say he is, and I do have a lot of qualms with Trump, but if he's as bad as you say he is, why are you lying about him? And that felt like another betrayal. And so then I started listening to these voices, and slowly over the course of about a year, I mean, I did end up voting for Trump in 2020 proudly, but over the course of about a year, I shifted to pro-life and conservative because I realized that the conservative side of things every single time makes sense. I mean, there's no logic, no consistency, no ethics, no morality on the other side of things. I realized that on what I would call now the pro-abortion side of things, it's just emotion, and very strong emotion, but just emotion. I mean, there's no science, no ethics, no nothing. And
no evidence, no proofs.
Right, exactly. And it felt like that all the way down. And what I realized so often is that, the Democrat Party claims to care about minorities, claims to care about immigrants, claims to care about women. But in fact, a lot of their policies end up hurting minorities, women, the people at the border, because the secure border is a humane border. So it's like this faux compassion turned up to 11. But if you take it a level deeper and you actually think about it for longer than 10 minutes or study the effects of these policies, you see that Democrat policies are hurting the very people they claim to help. And I lived that in 2020 because the Democrat response to COVID it feels like the Republicans, the red states, they course corrected. LA never did. California never did. And their policies hurt me. And that was like the light bulb that I needed to realize actually Democrat policies are harmful to people that they claim to want to help, And that was, the rest is history.
So I had a woman, very intelligent one here, I want to say 6 to 8 months ago. Mm-hmm. So she was from Virginia. And after we did the podcast, we had a small talk. And she told me she's not going to vote for Trump in Virginia just because of this one single reason. She still thinks that Russia hoax was true. I was like, wait a minute, so there are multiple proofs that that's not true, right? Mm-hmm. That's a hoax. No, she doesn't believe me. She doesn't want even to get into it and to read the article. Or
that's her only reason.
Yes, I'm not going to vote for Trump in 2024 just because the Russiagate is true.
Is she abstaining or she's voting for Kamala? She didn't get
I don't
that
know.
Wow.
Didn't. So at that time, Joe Biden was on the ballot, I want to say. Kamala was just the VP.
5 months ago, yeah.
But TDS is real.
Yeah, it is real. And I think that when you're that indoctrinated, and I was, and brainwashed, you can look at evidence and deny it. You can look at a video, you can look at, and just, you reject it. I think that, unfortunately, a lot of times humans have to suffer to change. Like, I had to suffer. Not that I hadn't suffered prior, but I had never connected the dots, again, between my suffering and Democrat policies. And there it was, like, staring me in the face in 2020. So prior to that, if someone had shown me evidence, even if I saw, like, oh, he said, but they should be condemned totally, not the neo-Nazis, not the white supremacists. Even if I saw that prior to 2020, I think I would have rejected it. I would have said, oh, but this, oh, but that. And I think that's what they do. You have to have a visceral experience.
But I believe that people right now, as Americans, they don't care about the party anymore, right? They don't care whether it's Republican or a Democrat. They care about the freedom and the economy, the safety, and everything that's going on for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
But I was shocked that in 2020, everything that happened in California, especially in Los Angeles, with the lockdowns, with the oh my God, with everything that happened here, in a year, in 2021, you could have recalled Gavin Newsom. You did not succeed.
Yeah.
After 1 year of the lockdowns and this insanity, you still voted in him once again for the second term.
I know.
That's lunacy.
I agree.
I don't understand that.
I agree, especially after he was caught without the mask at the French Laundry. But again, it's fueled by, I think, that people hate one man more than they care about the hypocrisy.
But he was and still is the loudest voice in the state of California, right? Name me his opponent. Who was the opponent, or who is the opponent of Gavin Newsom in 2026 now? There is none. Larry Elder, he was the guy in 2021, but he did not succeed.
He's the black face of white supremacy.
He's so intelligent. He's an amazing person.
He is, yeah. But I do have hope, because just a little bit before I was born, California was red, so it's not that far off, but.
You're a millennial, so you're up to 30?
Yeah.
So California was red in the 80s.
In the 80s. I think that a lot of it has to do with the amnesty that was granted by Reagan to a lot of immigrants. And I think that ever since then, California has been blue.
It should turn even more California red. Because he gave an amnesty, right?
It should, I guess.
You should have loved this guy in the party.
You're right, yeah. But the Democrats do a very good job of spinning the narrative. The Democrats have captured almost every single major cultural institution, Hollywood, the educational system, everything. And I think you are, maybe it's different in other parts of the country if you're born and raised there. I can't speak to that, but my experience is that you are reflexively Democrat. And in order to not be Democrat, it takes work, because almost everything in the world is telling you to be Democrat or to be liberal, neoliberal, or to be left. And to get outside that takes work. Everything is telling you to hate Donald Trump, and to get outside that takes work. So we have that up against us.
Just hate it. Orange man black.
Yeah. And look at how bad it's gotten, with the rhetoric around Hitler. I mean, it's crazy to be on the other side of it, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. But you just believe that, because you hear these sound bites and you see these headlines and you think, and he is, of course, he's crass and he's brash, and sometimes he doesn't do himself any favors, but he's Trump, and that's why I like him. And you just believe it. You just, okay, yeah, this is a racist guy. Never mind the fact that he was famous for decades prior and everybody loved him. Oprah was kissing him on the cheek on her show, but I didn't really know all that. And so I just felt like Trump came on the scene and he was a racist to me.
Do you see a cultural shift right now?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I work for Walkaway, which is the largest national organization for former Democrats. And anecdotally...
You've got Lexit, Walkaway.
Yes. Well, Walkaway is for everyone. No matter the color, no matter Latino, Black, it doesn't matter. We're here for everyone. But
not a single thing from the other party, right?
Well, they claim, but I find it hard to believe. And they don't have a movement. We have so many of these organizations, and you don't really hear about a similar movement on the other side.
That's because true conservatives and Christians, they hate the rhinos, they hate the neocons, right? They hate the warmongers.
Right.
They always have a critique on their side as well.
Yeah.
The left will never critique the left. Chris Cuomo is trying to do something like that.
Yeah. It's weird to see these people kind of wake up a little bit. I don't know.
It's hard to swallow. I was wrong for 30 years.
Oh, it is. And if you think about it, it's it's almost more scary to think that you've been lied to by your government over something like COVID than it is to think, oh, there's a deadly virus. I mean, I don't want to downplay a truly deadly virus, but in a way that is less scary than there's an entire industry system just lying to us nonstop, and to realize that everything you thought was true wasn't. And it goes so far beyond Trump or politics is it's very humbling, and it feels a little bit like mind altering, like being on drugs. Not that I would know, but it is a truly crazy experience.
Do you remember those moments when they were doing a press conference? They were without the masks. Once the camera turns on, they take the mask on. Mm-hmm. Once they're done, they take the mask off. So then they got they got caught in French Laundry, right? Mm-hmm. Andrew Cuomo was caught partying as well, orgies.
Yes.
So if this is such a deadly virus, they would never risk their own lives.
Exactly.
So 4 years have passed, right? Do you have an answer to this question? Why did the medical personnel dance? If they were so tired, right? If the hospitals were just bombarded with the dead bodies, they had time to do those dances.
Right.
Why? How?
The hospitals weren't bombarded. I don't know.
They were. Do you remember the rhetoric? They have these containers
and
outside the hospitals with dead bodies.
Right.
Where are the dead bodies?
Exactly.
Do you remember? I remember the videos from China. I want to say that was 2019 December to 2020 January. China. People were collapsing.
Right.
You remember those videos?
Yeah.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
They're just going and collapsing.
Which we didn't see here.
Yeah.
And we didn't see homeless people die.
COVID.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if COVID were so deadly, the homeless population would have been decimated. Not that would be a good thing, but they lived.
Yeah.
They're here.
Sweden,
right.
Belarus, they had no restrictions. And those countries are still alive. Mm-hmm. Nation is still alive of Sweden.
Yes. Well, I'm unvaccinated and I stopped wearing a mask in 2021 and I'm still alive. And it's, it's crazy what we did. None of it makes any sense. And the thing is even as a layperson, as a non-scientist, a non-doctor, you could see that. You could see that the plastic dividers up to here didn't really make sense, and the arrows on the grocery store floor. And it's unsettling that so few people, although anecdotally a lot of people did. I've met a lot of people online and off who had something shift, whether they actually became a conservative Christian like I did, they had something shift since 2020. So I feel as though a lot of people have, but I think more should have, because it was staring us right in the face that a lot of this was not real.
That was the clown world.
Yeah.
Outside, inside the restaurants, you remember those? Mm-hmm. It's too cold, so we're gonna be like with a tent, but it's outside, inside, but outside. You eat? You take your mask, you lift the mask, you put your food into your mouth, then you take.
And I tried to go back to work early to another restaurant. I got off government unemployment because I actually do like to work and I want to work. And when I went to work in spring of 2021, it was mostly just outdoors in the summer heat in LA. And I would have customers sometimes, because my mask would be under my nose and it would be a cloth mask too. They would be eating food, sitting down, obviously without a mask on, and they would be upset at me that I didn't have a mask on while they were out in a restaurant. And you just have to think that if it were truly a deadly pandemic, we would not be out in the movies. It would not be, you can come to the movies, but you have to be vaccinated. You can come to the movies, but you have to wear a piece of cloth. You just wouldn't be at the movies. And in fact, the government probably wouldn't even have to shut down the movies. We as human beings who are self-preserving, we would probably do that on our own. Yeah. You know, if we were truly frightened, and I hope it never comes to this.
As we did in the first month. I remember not even touching the door handle.
Exactly. We do want to preserve ourselves. So when you have half the nation saying, no, I'm actually not going to wear a mask and I'm not going to get this, you have to think why? Because I don't have a death wish. And here we still are alive. And it's odd that more people didn't see that you actually think that in a deadly pandemic, you would need the government to come in and lock everything down. I don't think that you would. Or mandate the shot that's supposed to save your life. I don't think you would.
Not one, multiple. I have no problem with people that took the shot. Mm-hmm. I have a problem with people who took the shot and still believe this nonsense after 4 years of that. Right. Do you think if this happens this year, people are going to fall into this once again?
What, COVID comes around or something?
Something new, like monkeypox, right?
Well, in LA, honestly, yeah, I do think that people would fall for it again. Over nationally, I have a little more hope that people have wised up. But no, LA, I still see people walking around with masks
I see
on.
people driving
And driving alone.
Yeah. With a mask on.
They just never. And, I also work with autistic young adults. And there's things like this, too, where one of the young girls I work with, she still carries around her mask because she just cannot let it go. And I don't even think she's afraid of COVID or believes that it's protecting her, but it's just like a thing. She can't let go of it. And so there's a lot of little things that people didn't think about, that this has long-term ramifications that we're just beginning to see. Like someone who, is not neurotypical, what does it mean to tell them you need this thing or you're going to die? Mm-hmm. And here she is 4 years later just carrying it around without even a fear of COVID. We've done a lot of damage, and it's going to take years to fix all of this. Sad.
Oh my God. I just hope people are not going to fall into this nonsense. I would like to talk to you today a lot about the women and the men relationships. So I've watched your videos on Instagram and YouTube. Mm-hmm. I liked it. So that's why I chose this topic. So is it hard to... I'm a foreigner, right? I'm an immigrant. So I'm 36 years old. With my wife, we're together for 15 years. Wow. So I have no idea what it's like to date at all. In Lithuania, in Europe, in America, I have no idea. I used to date, the last time I dated was 2009, right? So that was a whole another world. Here in the US, in LA, is it hard to date nowadays?
Yes.
How so?
I think that social media didn't help things. Dating apps didn't help things.
They distort the reality?
I think so. I mean, the reality is that you can discard someone and find someone else new very quickly. I think back in the day, you were kind of limited to your friends, your coworkers, friends of friends, coworkers' friends. You couldn't just go through every woman or man in your city or be in celebrities' DMs and things like this. OnlyFans hasn't helped. I think that we have a very temporary culture, and there's a lot of comparison. And if you keep swiping, you will find something better. I mean, at least on the surface, you're going to find someone younger and prettier and more wealthy, whatever. If you just keep swiping enough, how could you not? And I think that kind of has messed with people's minds. And I also think that a lot of men and women don't know how to be men and women anymore. I think Me Too did a number on men as far as how to approach a woman, and I think a lot of people are really confused. And I think, unfortunately, that shows in the numbers. I mean, 1 in 4 40-year-olds in the U.S. have never been married. Which is never.
1 in 4?
1 in 4 40-year-olds have never been married. I mean, not even on a second marriage or anything, just never married, which is crazy. 25% of people over 40 never married. That's a lot. And I don't know how you.
I've heard the stats that's, I want to say, up to 30% of 30-year-olds are still virgins. In this era of technology where you can basically swipe?
Is that for men and women both, or just men? Men, yeah. I've heard that men, yes. But
for women it's vice versa for the girls, right?
Well, I don't know, because see, I would like to see some more numbers on this, because I do take issue with, there's been this rise of the manosphere and the red pill. Mm-hmm. And I think it's justified. It's a response to feminism, I think, and the ills that it has wrought over the past 100 years. But a lot of it is very disparaging towards women, and I don't think it's helpful. And sometimes they will say things like 80% of women are sleeping with the top 10 or 20% of men. And I have not seen any actual real stats on that come from anywhere. I think it's just an idea that people have in their heads. So I don't know. I would be interested to see how many are actually staying virgins longer, which you would think would actually be a good thing. But if they're not getting married, it's not a good thing. And how that breaks down between men and women. Because I don't believe that women are just going around sleeping with multiple a very men? Small, women are sleeping with multiple men. I think men are sleeping with multiple women, but I don't believe that women are all sleeping with just the top 1% of men.
So that was a study and an article posted by, I want to say that was Tinder. So the stats were not even 10%. I want to say 5 to 3% of top men.
I know the one you're talking about, yeah.
90% of all
from
the
Tinder.
Women. So it means that distinction between the men that get every other girl and all the attention they want, and the men that have 0 dates or marriages or women or having sex even when they're 30, the distinction between those are like the galaxy. There are 2 different worlds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly the hookup culture the proliferation of birth control, the sexual revolution, abortion on demand, we've migrated away from safe, legal, and rare. It has not helped either women or marriage. And in the long run, it hasn't helped men, obviously, because what's good for women is good for men. But it really just services men who want to get laid. Now, here we're saying men aren't getting laid as much unless they're at the top. But it's a woman holding out on physical intimacy is part of what pushes a couple towards marriage.
Yes.
But if
you control
women,
sex, we control marriage.
Yes. But if a man can go get it somewhere else, especially if he is a man who is desired by women, then what's the incentive to get married?
Okay, so who lowered the standards? Women lowered the standards or men lowered the standards?
Well, feminism was wrought at the hands of both men and women. And I think the whole thing's been bad. And I think a lot of times we like to blame women, and I don't think women are blameless, but feminism could not have existed without men. I mean, even if you look at a woman's right to vote, which I'm not saying is necessarily, it is what it is. We have the right to vote, okay? Is it good that we do? That's a whole other...
Really? You doubt that?
Well, if women could not vote, we would never have another Democrat president ever again. I mean, just the numbers wouldn't be there.
RFK could be a president if he would be a nominee from the
Democratic
Democratic
Party. Well, is he a Democrat
Party.
Anymore? No.
He endorsed him, but he didn't change the party.
That's
Tulsi
true.
Gabbard did.
It's probably only a
But
matter.
he is a Democrat.
Yeah.
Just the Democratic Party did not let him go into the primaries.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
So women should vote or not?
Well, I don't want to take away anyone's right to vote, but I think that we were better off when we were married and families were upheld. And I think that the ideal...
You mean women or the nation?
Everyone. Women, men, the nation. And honestly, personally, I would like to not care about politics. I would prefer to just have a man tell me what to think. And I'm sorry, I don't think that's a minority. I know that women get all up in arms, but I think most women would gladly give up their vote and I don't ever think this is going to happen, and I'm not fighting to take away the right to vote from anyone that it's already been given to, but I think women would gladly give up their vote to men and not worry about all this stuff because it's very anxiety producing, and I don't think women are built for it. If we had a standard for men, and if we could trust men to be good men, but I don't think a lot of women trust men. Obviously, there are fewer marriages. So, of course, you need to vote as a single woman because you don't trust these men to vote well. You think they're all out to get you. So, obviously, you need to have your right to vote. It's very precious to you. But if we had a different society, a different culture, something more like what we used to have, I do think, because women were the ones against women's suffrage. You know, a lot of women pushed back against women's suffrage initially, and it was because they didn't want to have that civic duty of like the fire brigade and the draft, et cetera. And it is kind of unjust that women can vote, and yet we're not at risk of the draft, which I certainly don't want women to ever be drafted, but we have no risk of the draft, and men do. And yet a woman can vote to send men to war. Now, the Democrat Party might change that and draft women too, you know, once they get us all into World War III. But as it stands right now, women in Congress and just women civilians can vote in a way that leads us to war. And the men are the ones that are going to die first. So should the men only be voting? Maybe, you know,
But then you've got Iran. Women are not, women are prohibited from voting. And it's basically a misogynistic country.
Yes, but that's, I think, where, again, we've turned our back on God. I think that's where Christianity comes in. And if men are godly men and women are godly women, then it does work out in everyone's favor. Ultimately, I think the patriarchy, when it is actually godly, is protective of women and children. And it benefits women because women are not the same as men. And we're not built for a lot of this stuff. And I think a lot of women have like a visceral reaction to, oh, someone's coming in and taking their rights away or whatever. But in the long run, if they had a better relationship with men, then I think it would be a great comfort to them. I think it would be a very liberating thing. to shirk off some of this burden.
So the reason why I asked who lowered the standards, men or women, is the following. So in Lithuania, since I'm from Lithuania, that was a former USSR country, my native language is not Lithuanian but Russian, right? So I can speak, learn, read Russian. So I watch YouTube videos from Russia and I know their cultures, though I have never been to Russia. But in Lithuania, in former USSR, all those up to 17 countries, how many countries there were? There is one big problem still in 2024 in those countries like Lithuania, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan. Domestic violence. And women are getting beaten up in the family, and they still remain in the family. They don't, even if they call the police do nothing with this, right? So the question is, if women let the standards so low, so the standard is, even if you hit me, even if I experience domestic violence, can you at least do it like once a year, right? Maybe once in 6 months, once in 3 months. If you beat me up, do it please once a week, etc. If women would say, if you ever touch me, you will never get me, right? That would higher the standards, and male would realize, if I ever touch my woman or other women, I would never get laid, or I would never get her to date. I would never marry her. So this is how you kind of ruined the standards for men.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think there is something to this idea that women, like men built the world, but they built it for women. Yeah, I think women inspire men to be the best that they can be, or at least have that capacity. But I also...
We don't need that much. just a mattress, a TV, and sports.
Yeah, well,
That's
they
say
we would still be living in caves if it were just men, but men built society and all these wonderful things and all these great achievements because women, yeah. So I do think there's something to that, but I also, as a Christian, I do want to toe the line without negating what you just said of, at the end of the day, each man, meaning man or woman, is responsible for himself. And so no matter how the women around you are behaving or how the men around you are behaving, you can hold yourself to and I mean like the universal you, to a standard, right? Whether the women in your life are holding you to that standard or not. And so I do toe this line because I think sometimes it's too easy to blame women in the same way that liberals, neoliberals, just blame men and blame toxic masculinity. I think the only way this gets solved, and it'll take a while, and it'll take a miracle, and it'll take God, it'll take people turning back to God, but I think the only way it gets solved is with men and women both, and starting at micro level with the individual, with you being the change that you want to see. Because what I see online, and I know that online isn't the real world, but I think it's indicative of the real world, especially with how much we're online and how we just talked about how people aren't getting married and they're having trouble dating. I see a lot of pointing fingers at men, pointing fingers at women. How is that going to be solved? And ultimately, we do need men. Women have to be willing to be led, but men need to lead us out of this. So if we have a culture, generations of men waiting for women to change first, in a way, I feel like that's kind of more feminism, because we're asking for women to take the lead, change first, then men will change, and then men will take their rightful position as the leaders. And that probably is not going to happen, right? It takes the individual to change, and then that inspires, I think, people around you to change.
Yeah, but the men lowered the standard as well. So women tend to say that body count doesn't matter, right? If you ask 100 men, 99 of them will tell you it does matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter at all.
Right.
But if men would not lower the standard, so, it doesn't matter, she was an OnlyFans actress or model, right? She did this and that. She was a porn star. She had 5 marriages. She had 100 men, right? She had this body count of 100 men. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to marry her. So this is lowering the standard as well. So if you, females, women, would know that if I have like 100 men, I will never get married, you would never have had 100 men.
No. I mean, I don't hear men say, men do think body counts matter. Yeah.
But they're not vocal about it?
No, they are vocal about it. Yeah. I mean, but also at the end of the day, how does a woman have 100 men? Because 100 men are also whorish with her.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that biologically there is a reality to this. I think that women have a built-in barometer of whether this is my child, and it's the fact that I have him inside my body. A man doesn't have that. So I think that it's natural for a man to care about a woman's purity just on a biological level beyond, your relationship with God, and to want to trust a woman, because how else does he know that it's his? So I understand we're dealing with biological realities, but I also, again, think a woman does not become a whore without a bunch of men helping her.
100%.
Literally, like the math doesn't work out. And so again, it comes back to, and I'm not saying you disagree, this individual responsibility. But yeah, men and women do have different standards, because a woman doesn't really care about a man's past, but a man does seem to care about a woman's.
OnlyFans work out only because of the men.
Yeah.
If men would not pay for the nude photos,
yeah,
there would be none of OnlyFans models that earn 6 figures, 7 figures a year.
But in the same token, if women wouldn't do it, men couldn't pay for it. And so it's like, again, this cycle of everybody's got blame here.
Okay, so supply or demand, what dictates?
Oh, well, I guess the demand, right?
So let's take another example. Shitty movies, right? They do the shitty movies. We watch it. We watch it because movies are shitty, or they do the shitty movies because we watch it. So the Disney for the last 2 years, they got a lot of money. They lost up to $1 billion. That's because they're doing shitty movies. No one's going to a cinema and pay $20 for a ticket to see this propaganda.
So men have to stop paying for OnlyFans.
I hope
they will stop being customers.
Yes. I hope that they will stop paying for OnlyFans.
Yeah, well, and I do think, again, this is why none of this, people don't like to hear it, but none of it gets fixed without God, because you don't really have a reason to change. You don't really have a reason to get off OnlyFans as a woman, or to never do OnlyFans, or you don't have a reason to stop paying for OnlyFans, or just get free porn online without even paying, unless you have a relationship with God. I mean, there's really no reason. And everything, again, just like we talked about earlier, pushing you towards being a neoliberal, everything's kind of pushing you towards it. I mean, it's cheap, it's easy, it's free, it's hard to date. You may never meet anyone. You live in LA, it's impossible. You've been rejected how many times? So everything's pushing us towards this unless we have a relationship with God. And that's why I don't think anything gets fixed unless, as an individual and as a society, like, we turn back to God.
I like how feminists push this idea of gender equality, and they're always mad that the NBA players earn millions and dozens of millions every year.
Yeah.
But WNBA earn like 100,000, for instance, right? But at the same time, okay, so no one's watching WNBA.
No.
I'm sorry, but no one's watching, right? No one's watching a World Cup, soccer World Cup where women play. And at the same time, feminists are mad at this, but they are not mad that OnlyFans are, I want to say 90 to 95% are only female. Mm-hmm. Why no one is paying for me to post a naked photo?
Yeah.
Right? Why don't I earn millions of dollars every year?
Selective outrage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even as models, a model who doesn't take off their clothes or doesn't do porn, it's mostly women, and that's always been that way. And the top earners are women. So, I mean, it's as with everything with feminism or with neoliberals, it's a double standard. It's picking and choosing what they care about, and for decades, women have been told to be like men, to do everything men can do, that everything has to be equal. Meanwhile, men and women aren't equal. We can't do everything men can do. But we have all been born and raised.
That you can do.
But that's true. Yeah. But now we live in a world where men can get pregnant. So, I mean, we're really obsessed.
Guys, allegedly. I've never met a guy that can get pregnant.
I mean, we're obsessed with being equal, because we have this like very progressive ideal about everyone being equal, and it's not true. It's not reality, and everyone has suffered for it because we're like trying to shoehorn in women to be like men. I mean, with birth control, controlling our menstrual cycle, obviously abortion, like we're supposed to have sex like men. We're supposed to have sex and not get pregnant. We're supposed to work the same jobs as men. Meanwhile, we don't. Men work the most dangerous jobs.
Still. And
again, women don't take issue with that. They don't want to get into the manhole and with the cockroaches. So it is very selective outrage about this sports thing when the women are already making a ton of money as it is. So cry me a river, really, you know. So.
They don't want to work at the oil rigs.
No,
or
no.
At the sea, Northern Sea,
Yeah.
just to catch fish, etc.
That would be true equality.
Have you noticed that the whole modeling world has collapsed in the last 20 years? To 10 years even? Name me a few supermodels right now.
Oh, I don't know. And I think they just had the fashion show, right? The Victoria's Secret show, and people were complaining or something.
Because there were two trans men?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Well, trans women.
I'm such a bigot. Such a misogynist.
Two men.
In the 90s, I could name you Cindy Crawford, right?
Mm-hmm.
Naomi Campbell, Claudia Schiffer. There was a ton of supermodels. And they were not doing those photo shoots where they were just naked. No
Right.
pornography at all.
Mm-hmm.
They were decent.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got maybe a few supermodels, but they're on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
The whole industry were just collapsed.
Yeah.
What do you think are, in your opinion, right? So you're a millennial. What are the men and women's responsibilities right now? What would you say they are? Protect, provide for men?
For men, yeah. But I know that's easier said than done. It's gotten harder. I mean, it's hard to live off of one income nowadays.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah, yeah. But I also think that protect and provide obviously goes beyond just the financial number. And I think people get caught up with this. Obviously, there are women who are gold diggers, you know, and there are women who are superficial, just like there are men who are superficial. I think women mostly care about a man's future, you know, his capacity for earning and being hardworking and having ambition. So it's not so much if she's a good woman about a number right now, but about a future and like, is he able to handle it? I think some men, because to hear some men talk online, and I think it comes from a place of pain, you would think that no man under 6 feet and no man who was ever overweight or bald or poor ever got married.
What's wrong with the bald?
Nothing. But I mean, they do get married. They do get laid. I'm not saying it's
I am
easy
married.
now.
I do get laid. I have a child.
Listen, look at Joe
If
Rogan.
you're bald, you still have a
nothing-
chance.
Yes.
And you don't have to have a podcast.
But to hear some men talk online, you would think that you don't. You would think that you have to be like Ken and, you know, have 6 figures before a woman will even look your way. And that's not true. But of course, for superficial women, for ungodly women, it is going to be true. You're always going to meet the bad apples.
What do you mean? So they're 20 years old and they're dating 80-year-olds beasts. That's what they're doing. They're not searching for 6 feet, six pack.
I guess so. See, women
Go
aren't
to
as
Monaco.
superficial as
Yeah.
you think. They'll date you if you're on your deathbed and you're a millionaire.
That's true love.
Even if you don't have 6 pack, and yeah, that's true love. For women, it's harder though. What is a woman's? If a woman to protect your purity, and obviously a lot of women haven't. You can't go backwards. God is not going to restore your virginity, obviously. But I do think.
Though you can have a surgery, right? You can surgically restore your
Can
virginity.
you do that?
Yes.
That's crazy.
It is.
You can surgically restore a hymen?
You didn't? Yeah. Didn't you hear about that?
No.
Yes, you can. It's like
That's
20 years
very
that
weird.
people are doing that. Yeah.
Huh. I don't even know
So
the purpose
there
of
are
that.
there are women that are selling their virginity multiple times for $10,000, $20,000.
Oh, that's the purpose, I guess. That's terrible.
That's the purpose.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you are a virgin, you know, you don't even necessarily bleed. Because nowadays girls are so active that a hymen can, at other points in life, regardless of sex, you know, so it's not always necessarily like a thing that you can see and tell. But I guess people are getting these surgeries so that they can sell their virginity again.
Yeah.
That's crazy. No, but God, Jesus forgives, you know, and I do think the right man for you, a godly man, is also going to forgive. I mean, especially if you consider how confused everyone seems to be and how lonely everyone seems to be, and how I see Christian men and Christian women complaining that they can't meet any conservatives or any Christians. I think at a certain point it will take forgiveness and grace on both people's parts. For, you know, women cannot be this superficial about this, and this, and men cannot be, oh, well, you're not a virgin, so I mean, we all are entitled to our standards, but we're living in a very broken, godless culture. And I'm not saying like settle, but there needs to be a little more grace, and I don't see a ton of grace, including coming from Christian conservatives. But I understand, the rhetoric's always like heightened.
But don't you think if you're a conservative, it's pretty easy to date someone that is conservative and a Christian as well? Just go to church.
Yeah.
Go to a big one with the thousands of candidates. You're gonna definitely meet some girl that is 20 to 25 years old and she's a Christian. Maybe she's not a virgin, but bro, it's like 2024.
Right.
There's no chance. Maybe she converted to Christianity just a month ago or a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But see, I mean, a man has to be okay with that. Or, maybe a little bit, I just think grace, I'd maybe older than 20 to 24 years old. And again, I'm not telling people to not have standards, but when you go online, it seems like everyone has ridiculous standards, men and women both, and both people are pointing the fingers at each other. I mean, I think it's in the Bible, to what a man should do and what a woman should do. And if you follow that, you'll be pretty good. And I don't think all hope is lost that there's a person out there who's doing the same, opposite gender. But that's why, it all comes back to God, because if God isn't in this, it's kind of like play acting at being traditional and play acting at being a trad wife or whatever. And it rings very false. I mean, you do have to have a relationship with God. And I think he will guide you towards how to act as a woman, how to act as a man. And it's hard because you can't necessarily just stay home and have babies or be barefoot in the kitchen. I mean, everything is built to desecrate the family, to make us poor, so that everybody has to work. It used to be women wanted the right to work. Now we have to work, basically, in order to have a certain standard of living. But I think there are ways that you can make it work. I mean, you can also move out of Los Angeles and to more affordable places where...
But women had an incredible life in the 60s, 50s, 60s, right? Mm-hmm. They could work if they wanted to, but they could stay home. They could prepare their husbands in the morning and their kids, drop off them to school, maybe even just to lead them to the bus station. And they had like 45 hours of their spare time.
Yes.
They could meet with their friends that are mothers and housewives just like themselves, and just to hang out. That's incredible.
But they always painted in the movies like it was an awful life. They were all secret alcoholics. And so, well, I think where we were wrong was sending our kids off to school too. Because I think the mothers in the 50s and 60s should have probably been schooling those children as opposed to sending them to a government school to be schooled. That certainly didn't help. But yeah, Hollywood likes to paint this picture that all the women then were so miserable and longing for something, but they didn't have.
For
and
what,
now we have it apparently.
Spare time?
Right. Yeah. Well, see, women are always longing for stuff. You said earlier we're not satisfied, and it's true. And here we are with more rights than ever before, including before Roe fell, and we're more unhappy than ever before. So what are we always longing for? The grass is always greener on the other side. And a lot of women would cringe at what you just said, but I do think that when a woman has a man that she's devoted to and that she truly loves and that she can count on, then suddenly a lot of what you just said becomes far less egregious. But I think so much of this comes down to we're not getting married. We're not in a relationship. And so, yes, it sounds awful what you just said, because you're never going to meet that guy that you want to devote your whole life to and send the kids off to school and pack his lunch.
What pisses you off in modern men the most?
Well, that's a tough question. I mean, men are all different, right?
But in general. You can see the tendencies. Men are like in 2024, they're not like the men used to be in 1990s, right? Or early 2000s.
Well, I'm pissed off when men are liberal. I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off when men are Democrat. I mean, it's all this rhetoric about we're protecting women, we're protecting girls. I'm voting for Kamala because I'm a girl dad. And that is really... I mean, that we'll never get out of this as long as that continues. Men need to stand up. And so often I see, women standing up and women going to the school board meetings or mothers or whatever. Men need to do that a little bit more. I wish that men overall were a little more manly.
But it's the first step. A mom goes to a school board meeting. If she is pissed off right there, she tells her husband, then he goes. And then it's...
Because women inspire men to, yeah. I mean, we've lost the plot with masculinity, I think, and that's because we have phrases like toxic masculinity, and we seem to value masculinity in women, but not when it's in men. And now we want men to be in touch with their feminine side, which I think is a little absurd, frankly. I don't think a man needs to be really in touch with his feminine side at all. So yeah, we've misguided men. And then when you have fatherlessness, it's like, well, how do you learn to be a man from Hollywood, who's telling you that you're toxically masculine? So it's tough. I think a lot of, and then you go to a government school where the teacher is likely a woman. Mm-hmm. So I think it's probably very hard to be a man, again, unless you have a relationship with God.
What about women? What pisses you off in modern women?
What pisses me off with modern women? Well, again, it pisses me off when they're liberal, the liberal white woman. It pisses me off when they're Democrat. It pisses me off, that we're so easily, it seems, emotionally manipulated. And I think that's why most of the social justice warriors are women. And, maybe what the woman does, the man follows, like you just said. And so women are social justice warriors, and then men want women, so they become social justice warriors too. But women seem, we seem to be, we fall for social contagion a lot more than men do, I think. And then maybe men follow us after we do. I wish that we could see the truth a little bit sooner and a lot more. Because women will just fall for anything. And really what amounts for women's rights in 2024 is literally just the ability to kill your baby. I mean, there's no other, when people talk about women's rights, that's all they're talking about. It doesn't even matter if they say the word. They're not talking about anything else. And yet women, and it's so hard to watch now on the other side of it, women go crazy. They go absolutely rabid for the ability to kill their own offspring. And it's
someday
disgusting.
In the future.
Yeah, you might not even be pregnant now. And then older women do it too, who can't even conceive anymore. The amount of times I've heard an older woman or older Hollywood actress saying all this stuff. I mean, we're like a horse with blinders on about killing babies, and it's absurd. And I think then men follow suit because they think it's the right thing to do. It's like when a white person, feels white guilt and they defer to a black person because they think it's the right thing to do. I think men think they're doing something for a group that has been typically oppressed, but they're really not. We're literally just talking about killing babies.
So 3% of black people kill almost 40% of all the babies in the U.S.
Well, yeah. Black babies are aborted at a rate almost 4 times that of white babies. So again, it's this hypocrisy. You can't be for Black lives.
Yes. And
then also for abortion. Yes. Because look at how the Black American community has been decimated by abortion. So which one is it? Are you for Black lives or are you for abortion?
And women are supposed to be more compassionate than men. Yeah. But you are more advocating for abortions than we do. And vice versa. Mm-hmm. Men are more pro-life than women are. Mm-hmm.
But they paint it as you're being compassionate towards the mother who's in despair and the girl who's been raped, which how frequent is that? They paint it as you're not being compassionate towards the women. And that's how they get women sucked in, is our compassion to the point of toxicity for these hypothetical rape victims and assault victims and the mother who can't afford the baby. And, it's always this huge tragic situation as opposed to just a regular woman who is maybe acting kind of like a little bit whorish. It's always this awful, awful situation. And she's probably Black, and she's got 3 babies. And that's just not the typical situation. But they use those things to play off of women's natural empathy. And also a lot of people do not realize that the baby is alive. I didn't realize that before, which sounds pathetic. A lot of people do not realize when life begins. They either forget or they never knew. What was your eye-opening
thing that you realized that you're pro-life?
Well, I mean, I was starting to become more conservative in 2020, 2021. And then in spring of 2022, there was a story that didn't really get as much attention as it deserved of anti-abortion activists who were actually progressive feminists, but also anti-abortion, which is interesting. They confiscated a box that had 115 fetal bodies in it, and 5 of them were late term. And I mean, there's pictures and video of these babies, and, a couple of them, some of them are, really viciously ripped apart, but all of them look like babies, like literal babies that you could have seen in a NICU and that you would have seen in a NICU had they been wanted, because we do do everything we possibly can to care for babies who are born premature at 20 and 21 and 22 weeks. And sometimes they survive, so it's interesting that when we want to abort them, we just drop it and drop them in the box. And these were obviously late-term abortions, and it had been at a facility, Cesar Santangelo's, and he's been on camera before in an undercover live action investigation admitting that were a baby born alive in his facility, his nurses and him would not do everything they can to care for the baby. Which, as my understanding, is federally illegal because we do have the Born Alive Act. You're not allowed to just leave a baby from botched abortion to die. But he's been on camera saying that. And so you do wonder, okay, how did these babies die? And it seems like some of them, were not necessarily, this was in DC, and that does have abortion on demand all 9 months, no questions asked, no medical necessity. And there's never a medical necessity to kill a baby who's post-viability because you would just deliver the baby. You would just induce delivery or do a C-section. You wouldn't kill a baby who at that point is viable. And these were viable babies, so how did they die? Why did they die? They never got an investigation. The activists who were able to get the box, and the box was given to them by the waste management guy. They didn't steal the box. It was given to them by the guy who was picking it up to take it to a waste facility, and they were arrested. The babies have never received any kind of investigation or proper burial as far as we know or anything. And so just looking at those images and the video I was already leaning towards that, obviously, because I had found God and I was becoming more conservative, but it just made me realize that really this is disgusting. And it is happening. And it was happening. They like to say, oh, well, it's only happening now because first they deny it happens, and they say it's only happening because Roe fell and you're the ones who made it so that we have abortion in late term. But it was happening before Roe. Before Roe fell, we had a handful of states that allowed it all 9 months. Late term abortions are happening. It's egregious the whole way around. But when you have these images of these babies and one has like her eye open and it's like a blue eye, it's very disturbing. I don't know how you can look at it and think that this is healthcare. And that it's that it's good for women. It's a very bizarre notion of women's empowerment that, right, we're killing our own offspring.
And they were future women. They're girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Girls are killed in utero. Again, Black people are killed in utero. The fact that that's what accounts for female empowerment. And that's the complete desecration of what it means to be a woman. Not that you can't be a woman if you're not a biological mother, but the fundamental way in which women are different than men is that we can conceive and carry life and give birth, and to actively kill your own offspring. And then not only that, but we're at the point where we celebrate it. We're so far from safe, legal, and rare, which is what it was when I was growing up. And that was a Democrat talking point. That was a Bill Clinton talking point. And now they won't even say rare anymore. And then no Democrat politician will give you term limits. They shy away from the subject. They will never, ever tell you. And they lie. Joe Biden did it on stage. Kamala Harris did it on stage. They pretend like late-term abortions aren't happening. And they pretend like Roe stopped late-term abortions, and it didn't. I don't know. I don't know whether these politicians are lying. I guess they must be lying, or they're just really ignorant. A lot of Americans don't seem to know what Roe did, but what Roe did was it said that no state could stop abortion in the first trimester. It made up the trimester system, and it said in the first trimester, you have to allow abortion. It did not say anything about restricting in the second or the third. It said that you could, but it didn't say that you had to as a state. So late-term abortions were happening when Roe was here, and I hate it. Kamala and Biden did it. They dance around that, oh, we're going to codify Roe, which they won't because they always promised to, and they never did. But they act like that stopped late-term abortions, like that was a reasonable thing, and it wasn't. Most Americans agree with Roe, I think because we've been programmed to, because here we have 2.5 generations of women who've been told it's a right. And so we're programmed to agree with Roe. We don't actually understand when life begins. We don't understand how abortion works. We don't understand what Roe did. We don't understand that late term was happening. But they obfuscate the issue and act like, oh, if we just codify Roe, it would not allow for these late term abortions. I hate that so much. Roe did not say that you could not have late term abortions, and we absolutely were. I don't know how I started talking. I don't know what question you asked me anymore, but I do think a lot of people don't know what Roe did or when life begins.
So every time I ask my men friends, like, why don't you use contraception, right? Why don't you use condoms? I don't like the feeling that I get, right? So that's from the men's side.
Yeah.
What do women say? Why don't they use the condoms? And I was arguing with one woman on Instagram. I was like, so you're the one that can that can get a condom, right? If a man you're sleeping with does not bring the condom, and you want to protect yourself, you want to use a contraception, bring your own condom. Why not? No, he has to take care of a condom.
Oh, women say that to you?
Yeah.
That's weird. See, what I hear women say a lot is, oh, well, condoms aren't 100%, which we know. And they say, oh, abortion is still necessary when you're on birth control, which we know because no birth control is 100% effective. And so what I really like to emphasize is that, again, no one's coming for your contraception necessarily, but the proliferation of contraception kind of increases abortions. People think that it doesn't, but in a way, we have become so conditioned to believe that we have a fundamental human right to sex without consequences, and that sex can be purely recreational and not also procreational. And so if the condom breaks or it doesn't work or you forget to take the pill or whatever else, abortion is used as backup birth control. And so if we didn't have, which again, you can't put this genie back in the bottle, you can't erase birth control or the sexual revolution, but if we didn't have these easy measures to, oh, I can use a condom, so I'm going to sleep with a guy I just met 5 minutes ago, you would be more careful. Women used to naturally have to be more careful about who they chose to share their body with, because if you became pregnant, what the heck were you going to do? And like, was he a good guy and could he take care of you? Now it doesn't matter. But then again, if the condom breaks or whatever happens, or I guess he just doesn't have it, you as a woman are the one bearing the consequences. And so you, at the end of the day, you don't have a right to sex without consequences as a man or a woman, but especially as a woman, because any way you slice it, whether you adopt or abort or have the baby, you are fundamentally changed.
Yes.
And people like to act like there's like a third option where the baby just magically doesn't exist. And that's not true. I mean, abortion it changes you. Then they call it forced birth. I mean, abortion is the voluntary birth essentially of a dead baby. I mean, there's no third option where it just disappears. So he's coming out one way or the other. And that's something you have to reckon with as a woman. And you're voluntarily choosing to become the mother of a dead child, you know? And so I would obviously urge people, if they don't have a relationship with God and they are going to engage in these behaviors, and I know at the end of the day, humans are humans and we are sinful, to use condoms, to use birth control. But I don't think we've been served by the proliferation of birth control, because I think we all have it in our heads that we have this right. And so if the condom breaks, if the pill doesn't work, I'm going to go get the abortion. Men and women both have that. And I think that's bad. But I mean, it's crazy to not use a condom, especially if you're not in a relationship with someone.
But the birth control pills destroy your health.
That too. And that's coming to light now a little more, which is great. Yeah.
So I did this video in my Lithuanian language for my Lithuanian followers, I want to say up to a year ago, and I told this story. So girls, women, if you use the birth control, right, the pills, which destroy your body, your hormonal system, everything, just read the label and read the comments that people share their testimonies by using those pills for a year, 2, 3, 4 years in a row, what happens to their bodies. So why wouldn't you suggest that your man takes the hormonal stuff?
Yeah.
They will never do that. I would never do that. No man would ever drink some hormones just for her girl not to get pregnant. But you accept those pills, you destroy your health just to have some more pleasure having sex with.
Right.
That's craziness.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And they will say stuff like that. They will say, well, why don't you force the vasectomy, or why don't we make men have birth control? They'll say it as they're fighting for abortion. And it's like, that's not the reality. We're not going to force vasectomies on men. You know, they're not as reversible as we think. We don't have hormonal male birth control. First of all, you have to trust the guy to actually have a vasectomy, actually have the pill if there's a male birth control, which we're having sex with people that we don't even know. So do you trust him? But that's not going to happen. So again, when are women, this is an area where, again, women and men need to take responsibility, but women fundamentally need to take responsibility, because the reality is that the pill does destroy your health. The condom could break. And again, you are the one. It doesn't matter if you think we should have forced vasectomies or a male hormonal birth control. You are the one who's going to have to bear the consequences of your decision. Unfortunately, the man may or may not have to bear that. I think he will bear it, you know, when he meets God. But you're the one who's going to bear it no matter what you do. And so it's just crazy. But yes, a lot of people are realizing how the pill destroys your health. It makes you fat, makes you unhappy. They're saying that when you get off it, you know, you're not as attracted to your partner sometimes because it makes you, I've read that the pill kind of
more feminine.
Yes, yeah. It makes you attracted to more feminine men. It makes you attracted to men who would have been more like familial to you had you not been on birth control. And so that's an issue too. And then I don't think it's like you get off birth control and then you just become pregnant. You know, our body isn't necessarily like a Gumby thing. I don't think it's good to trick your body into thinking you're pregnant and women will get birth control for acne. You know, they'll get birth control for anything. They'll get birth control just even if you tell the doctor at 15, 16, I'm not having sex, they'll be like, we'll just take it in case. We just give out this pill, which is, I mean, we give out a pill for everything in this country. And that's, you know, again, coming to light with this Make America Healthy movement. But to give a pill for something that is hormonally affecting you when you're not even sexually active.
So just in case, I'm just sitting doing a podcast with you, I'm just wearing a condom, just in case.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. See, again, women do these crazy things, and it's so that we can act like heathens, you know, and have this sex with people, and then you'll hear women say that sex is ultimately like not fulfilling with these partners. So what are we doing? Well, you know, it's all very, very crazy.
In regards to feminine men, name me 5 Hollywood superstars of the 90s or of the 80s. Who were those?
Like Tom Cruise was one. Brad Pitt. John Travolta.
Stallone.
Okay, yeah.
Schwarzenegger, right?
Yeah. Well, Schwarzenegger's a little less masculine now, but yes, he was.
That were
yes.
superstars back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So Travolta, Cruise, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, right?
Yeah.
They were masculine men.
Yeah.
Superstars in Hollywood. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They were grossing a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars in the theaters.
Yeah.
Name me superstars male right now in 2024.
I don't know. I mean, Tom Cruise is still a little bit on his game. He's a weirdo.
He's 60 plus.
But he does his own.
Amazing
he's
job.
60 plus.
He's the only one. Timothée Chalamet.
No, he's
Tom
a little.
Holland.
No.
But these are superstars.
They're like little waifs.
That's what I'm telling you. So these superstars right now, they look very feminine. Mm-hmm. Masculinity is gone. Mm-hmm. The Rock, I want to say, is the last one.
Yeah.
That's it. So the world changes, the Hollywood changes, everything that we watch, the entertainment industry changes. Do you remember like superstars, singers, performers of the 80s to 90s? Those were masculine men. Mm-hmm. Right now, who performs?
Who's masculine? No, yeah. They have like Harry Styles in a dress with a
or
singing "I Feel Like a Woman."
Or Sam Smith.
Yeah,
I used to like the guy. I liked his songs. Mm-hmm. I danced to a song on our wedding in 2016. Yeah. Right now, this guy is a devil. Literally, he wears like a devil on the stage.
Mm-hmm. Lingerie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's a war on masculinity. And ultimately, that doesn't fulfill women. I think women, we can get as progressive as we want, but we can't change biological reality, you know? And it's like, we don't seem to get that no matter how progressive we get, we're still going to be men. We're still going to be, I mean, we're trying our best to not be, but we're still going to have these proclivities. We're still going to have these attractions. We're still going to have these base, like, human behaviors. And you cannot fashion that out of us with progressivism.
I believe that once humanity realizes how to make female robots, females are done. Because women, you control sex, and if a male figure out how to have kind of the same sex but with the robot, not with a real human being, you're done. Well,
yeah, I mean...
pornography did this thing already. Yeah. Lots of women just masturbate at home. They don't need any women because it's hard to date you, right?
Right.
You have to be, first of all, to take responsibility. You have to and you have to have an ability to have a conversation when you go on a date, spend money, everything that goes with it. But you can just take your phone, masturbate for 3 minutes, and you're good.
Mm-hmm. But see, this comes back to God, because I mean, I'm worried about the future. I think they're going to make we will have artificial uteruses for sure. Whether or not you can have sex with that robot, we will have, which will make the abortion debate a little bit more interesting. Because I wish it would go away, but what about when you can take out the fetus, the zygote, the embryo, and put it into artificial uterus?
Surrogate?
Yeah. Which I think is an awful thing, because I obviously being being gestated inside a robot has consequences, of course. But then we're also talking about saving these babies. But I have a feeling the women will still say, no, it's my embryo. I want to kill it. That's what they'll say. Even when we get to a point, well, because it is an interesting thing. This is sort of tertiary, but very quickly, when Roe was decided, viability was like 28 weeks, and now it's like 22 to 24. So viability will get younger and younger with advancements in medicine and technology. And what will the people do when viability becomes very, very, very young? Will they still say, no, it's my embryo, it's my child, and I don't want my child running around out there, so I'm going to kill it, which is kind of interesting. But yes, I mean, I think, the world is going to push you towards these things of, oh, just forget it, a woman's too hard and all that. But again, that's why like a relationship with God is so important, because you will come to a point, I think, even as a man, especially as a woman, where again, we can't have so much progress that we shun these. A woman always desires like a family, and you reach a point where if you don't have it, you feel a little empty without it. And I imagine the same thing comes for a man. It might come a little bit later. It might come, I don't know, maybe it's not a hard biological cutoff like for a woman. And that will never be satisfied with a robot, I don't think. Maybe we get so good that, yeah, you can actually date the robot too and love the robot and think you're in love with the robot. I don't know. But we can't like get these desires out of us because they're God-given desires, right? They're good. And so we do have to stick to what is the right thing to do, no matter what the world is doing. And I am worried about AI and all that. But yeah, the world might be pushing you towards porn or, God forbid, a uterus, fake uterus, or a robot. But what is the thing that's going to bring you the most satisfaction in life and glorify God? And that is never going to change, because you can't. I don't know if you can ever really make a robot that really is like a human woman or like a human man, to where you really feel like I'm fully satisfied. I just can't imagine that, because isn't the robot programmed to love you? That's not as fulfilling as meeting someone and falling in love. And realize it can't be, right?
But women and men are so they differ so much. I'm speaking from a male standpoint, right? It's kind of not easy for me to live with my wife, because just this one fact that you have this thing called period once a month, you can't control yourself, right? Your hormones, your emotions, they go through the roof. So at least that week we have to more control ourselves as husbands and to understand you more. At the same time, it's not easy for women to live with men as well because of our needs and etc. But if you can program a robot that will never have a period, for instance, if that's a female robot, right? If it will not get into in our ways, it will only do their duties like have sex with us and cook our food. I believe lots of men, or percentage-wise, I want to say up to maybe even 50% of men would agree even to try it for 90 days. Money back guarantee.
You're probably right. I mean, I think this is kind of like the Neuralink thing, where where we're going to get to a point where you can live in an alternate reality that suits you. And to me, it's easy to say now, but that sounds very boring. Like, what's the point of life if you're not struggling? Like, what's the point of life if your woman you love doesn't have a period once a month? We need struggle. We need challenges to push back against. If we lived in utopia, we'd be bored, right?
But it's too much in 2024. Can we slow down with challenges in 2024?
I guess so, yeah. We have plenty of challenges.
Just for a little bit. Can we get some rest?
Yeah. But if you think about being hooked, either having a robot who is the perfect partner or being hooked up to Neuralink, I guess you would be so satiated with pleasure that you wouldn't care. But would it not get boring? If everything was exactly as you wanted it, you would be, what's the point of living, right?
Right, 100%.
That's what gets hard for me, of how could you actually go with a robot partner? How could you actually go with this? But I don't know. I guess you're right. People will go for what's easy.
A few days ago, I saw one video on Instagram. So that was in China. So they, some guy invented this mattress or this bed that bounces. So it bounces in order for couples to help to get sex. So it means that men can't even have proper sex They don't know how to do the.
It just bounces for you, so
yes,
you just
it
both
bounces.
get to lie there.
You just lay one on another, and you just bounce it.
That reminds me of those machines where, they it just shakes your thigh.
Yeah,
and it's supposed to like make you lose weight or something.
6 abs.
Yeah.
6-pack abs.
Yes.
That's madness. Do you think promiscuity happened and started in the 1960s with when the hippies arrived?
Yeah. I think the sexual revolution, it was a turning point that we can't come and go back from.
Do you think that was a CIA operation? Or do you think people just figured it out on their own?
I don't know enough about it, but I have read about, people like to say, oh, feminism started with good intentions, but then kind of lost the plot somewhere. I've read that from its inception. I mean, feminism has been tied to socialism, socialist thinkers, way, way back when, 100 years ago, like Frankfurt, et cetera. So the idea of it being a CIA operation wouldn't really surprise me at this point, given everything that's happened. After the last 4 years, I don't discount anything, but I admit that I don't know enough about it. But it has certainly destroyed everything. The sexual revolution is just crazy.
Destroyed families, mindsets, because that was amazing for the males. Like from now on, if I want to have sex with you, I have to marry you, right? I have to take the responsibility, man. But out of a sudden, I want to have sex with you. No problem. Let's do it. Let's live in a van. Let's go to the fields. Let's have threesome, foursome. That's amazing. So the whole feminist movement is amazing for male.
Yeah.
You pay in the restaurant, right? Right, 50-50.
Yeah.
I don't have to.
That's awful.
I don't have to call a cab for you. I don't have to open the doors for you. I don't have to take responsibilities. If I don't have a condom, I can have sex with you, and you're gonna get an abortion on your own.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I know.
It's just the part of the humanity that suffers the most is Christians, because the family suffers. But male, they win all the time.
Well, I think in the long run, don't you think they suffer? Because you read all about how men are more unhappy than ever before, too, and more lonely. And then these young men who are virgins till 30, they're not satisfied with that. If you didn't win the genetic lottery, or you're not at 6 figures or whatever, and you feel like you can't get a woman, I feel like women and children probably suffer first, but then in the long run, men have suffered from it too. Because I think what's good for women is good for men. What's good for men is good for women.
100%.
So I don't feel like men are very happy right now. I'm sure they're short-term happy, right? You're short-term happy when you have like a new conquest or whatever. But they must also be missing this fulfillment of that men back in the day might have had when they were taking care of a family and taking care of children and had a legacy, and we were working hard and we were too busy working out in the fields to even be depressed or lonely or whatever it is. A lot of us are missing purpose in our lives. And I think that goes to men too, probably.
So the purpose of being a man or a woman comes from God, right? How did you find one?
How did I find one?
Not purpose. How did you find God?
Oh, how did I find God? Well, it was because of, and this is why politics is so important. It was because of my political change. I would have not found, I guess I would have, but I found God because I changed politically. And so this is one of the reasons why I think it's so important for Christians to vote and be involved. You can't just like wash your hands of it and think that, oh, God's already won and whatever happens, let it all crash and burn. Because people are one for God with what's going on politically, with the policies, with the world, with the culture. I watched what happened in 2020 in LA, and that caused me to seek another answer, like a better way to live in God. And because I was listening to these people like Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager, who obviously aren't even Christians, I decided, I was raised Catholic. So, and then I left the church. It's interesting because I was listening to your episode with Savannah, and I know that you have some feelings about the Catholic Church. I left the Catholic Church when I was a young woman, and one of the reasons why was the scandal and how it had been covered up by different churches. Priests moved around to different dioceses instead of, arrested or investigated or whatever. And I think I might have left anyway because I was, 19, whatever, and you want to rebel. I had been raised Catholic. I'd gone to Catholic school all my life. But that was my experience of Christianity was Catholicism. And then when I wanted to go back to church and I started reading my Bible in like 2021, all of the Catholic churches in LA were closed. or they were doing mandatory masks, or they were doing outside, or they were saying things like be pro-life, get the vaccine. Like, I looked for a Catholic church by me because that's what I thought Christianity was. I didn't realize there was so much. I mean, I had read about the Great Schism and learned about it in school, but I didn't realize there was so much animosity sometimes between Protestants and Catholics. Like, that was just my own ignorance. I just thought everyone was kind of Catholic if you believed in God. And so when I couldn't find a Catholic church, I had to go elsewhere. And I was very disappointed in how the Catholic diocese in LA handled COVID, because it was very, very bad. And I think the church suffered for it. And then I ended up finding a church, and I don't know, I don't have like a great conversion story where it struck me all of a sudden, but I was deeply unhappy before COVID. I was deeply unhappy with the way that I was living my life. And I wasn't like, doing anything crazy to write a memoir about, but I was living, I was a millennial woman and living the way the world tells you to live. And the interesting thing about the response to COVID, even though I took such issue with it, is that it highlighted all the cracks that were already there, I feel like, in relationships and families, in society. If there were cracks already there, the response to COVID just like made them 10 times greater. And so I was already unsatisfied. And then when you tell me I have to stay home, I can't go to work, I was in a weird living situation at the time, you like really feel it. And it just, and then my political shift and realizing I'd been wrong about so many things led me to believe, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong about God too. Maybe I'm wrong about the entire way to live, because clearly this is not right. And I'll be honest, I still struggle. I logically believe in God. I do believe in the way the Bible lays out to live. I mean, that is obviously the correct way to live. I mean, that will bring you the most chance at satisfaction in this life. But I do sometimes struggle in my walk with God and my faith in God, because we live in hard times.
Like we all do.
Yeah. I struggle with that. Sometimes I feel when I talk to Christians like they're so strong in their faith, but I guess maybe it always appears that way on the outside sometimes.
Yeah, maybe they're just lying.
Yeah.
They're just pretending.
Yeah. Because
we all do. We have problems with walking with God in every situation that life brings us.
Yeah.
What's your biggest problem with feminism?
All of it. All of it. The lie that men and women are equal. And then just the way that we have, I believe that the funny thing is feminists will take issue sometimes with this trans craze that's going on right now. But I think that the trans craze couldn't have happened without feminism, because feminism has for decades been telling women that we are the same as men, and literally everything. We can have sex like men. We should work like men. We can work like men. All of it. That our periods are a scourge. We have to, complain about them and control them and take medicine for them. All of it is about being more like a man. And so now, it makes sense to me that we have men who think that they're women. Like, if there's no difference between men and women, why can't you feel like a woman even though you're in a man body? So we've been sold this lie, and I think it's because of feminism, because we're not equal. And so, yeah, maybe way back when women should have never gotten the vote, because, again, we're not equal. We have different roles, and we are where we are now. I don't want to go backwards and, try to put stuff back that can't be taken back, but we do have to fix it. And people have to realize that admitting that not every human is equal, we're equal in the eyes of God, but on this earth, we're not equal. Like, every human is not equal to every other human. Now, every human has a right to life, and that doesn't mean but we're not equal. We have different capacities, different abilities as men and women, but also just as humans. And that feels like a dirty word to say, that, oh, actually, we're not equal, to just admit that people are not equal. And I mean, it's really done a disservice to women in all the ways that we've said, abortion maybe being the main one, to just have this idea that we have to be boss babes and be like men. It's really just all about being like tiny men. And then that's where so much confusion comes from, I think, in relationships, because I think women sometimes look at men as like big, hairy women. And so they're like misbehaving when they don't act like a woman. And I think sometimes men look, or women even look at themselves like, oh, we're just tiny, weaker men. But we're really not. We're men and we're women. And so maybe a man isn't misbehaving. Maybe a woman isn't misbehaving. She's just acting like a woman and he's acting like a man. And we're just different, There's so much I just think misunderstanding of what it actually means. I think even a lot of Christians and conservatives, and I even struggled earlier in the conversation when you asked me of what is a woman's role? We are at a place where people cannot tell you what a woman is. And obviously a Christian, a conservative could tell you that a woman is an adult human female, and maybe a liberal couldn't do that. But like, what is actually a woman? Like, what is a woman's role in society? What is her role in the home? What's her role in a family? I think even a lot of Christians and conservatives, myself included, would struggle to tell you what that means. And so it goes beyond, oh, adult human female, like what is a woman? And we don't know because feminism has basically just destroyed it. Like, what is a woman? How is she different from a man? How is she unique from a man? Well, nobody really knows because we're supposed to be men.
So, you as a Christian and conservative woman right now, what do you seek from men? So, in order for you to understand what I mean, is I'm going to start with myself. So, I seek from a woman, from my wife, I want her to always have my back. What I mean by that? I want to be and feel safe that she will never say bad things about me when she's having a conversation with her friends, with female friends especially, right? I want to have my back, to have her to have my back in regards to our child. If her responsibility, for instance, is school, homeschooling, etc., I'm earning money, I'm providing food, I'm providing this and protection, etc. So these are the rules, right? So I have to be sure that she does that. And she only says something to me when some problem occur. If everything is fine, I don't want to hear about it because I have my responsibility. She has hers, and I want to be sure that she is she's not having sex with other men. That's it. That's all I want as a Christian conservative man, husband. What about you?
I think that it's very important. Women, we really prioritize safety, and it's not just physical safety, but like emotional safety. Knowing that I think there's women get such comfort in knowing that they can be themselves and maybe be a little bit crazy, although I don't think you should be intentionally crazy. I think a woman should control herself. A godly woman should control her own emotions.
You have this week.
Yes,
At
yes.
least.
And knowing that a man can handle that. I mean, I don't think you should purposely put your man through stuff or test him. But again, we are different.
Yeah.
And even when we do control ourselves and control our emotions and work on that, we're still going to be a little bit more emotional than a man. And knowing that you can act a little crazy, for lack of a better word, and that a man's still going to be there and still sees you and loves you, I think is like extraordinarily valuable for a woman, and sometimes very rare. And then a man who is who's able to figure it out, I mean, he's human too, and life is full of problems. And we said, it's hard to have one income, all this, you may have to work outside the home, whatever, but a man who at the end of the day is going to figure it out, and you can figure it out with him, but he is going to figure it out. Even if you can't do it, he will do it, like a rock a little bit, that he's solid, and all of your waves, your emotions, your craziness, your inability to figure things out, your inability to take care of everything as a woman, that it's going to meet its end with him, and you can crash against that and it's going to be okay. I think those two things are very valuable. I mean, I guess I'm speaking for all women. It is hard. I don't know. I am personally coming to terms with maybe God does not have marriage in store for me. So I don't know how to answer that question for me personally. But I think those two things would be things that women very much value, no matter the time.
I'm asking only because I believe there are a lot of men right now that are single and that are looking for a wife or just a woman to date for a strong relationship, and they have no idea what women want, right? Yeah. And I'm going to give you one example. So my wife has a friend here in LA, so I know her as well. So I believe I have never met her, but I know her because my wife is telling me some stories about her, etc. So this girl, she's 36 to 37 years old, and I saw her Instagram. So on Instagram, right, she acts like in a good way, but she acts like a bitch, right? Maybe some fancy stuff with maybe some Gucci, Louis Vuitton, some bags and etc. Always going to restaurants. If you watch her stories, she's always at the restaurant. She's always hiking. She's always doing something, right? And at the same time, when she meets with my wife, she's telling the story that she's 36 years old and she is lonely, and she's looking for a very conservative male. So she does not, and maybe women that are watching right now, maybe you do as well. You just do not understand that if I ever texted that friend of my wife, before I was single, right? And I was texting with her and I was looking at her Instagram, I would never suggest that she wants strong relationship, marriage, and conservative men, because she acts way differently than she speaks and that her needs are. That's why I'm asking, like, what do you actually want? Because everything that we see on social media is kind of a fake. Lots of them are just fake. And this girl has no idea that she has to change her attitude, and she has to change her Instagram if she DMs with other guys, because everything that the guy sees, like, okay, so we evaluate Gucci, restaurants, hiking, this and that. How much will it cost for me in a month? Like extra $2,000? I can't afford it, so I'm not even gonna text you because I can't afford it. But I don't know that she's willing to get rid of all that lifestyle because she's 36 and she wants just to have a family. Maybe she wants to get along with me and she wants to build business together, or maybe she wants to support me. Maybe she wants something to do with the family.
That's a good point for people to consider. No, I mean, I would say emotional safety from men. I would say the ability to figure things out. I like I said earlier, I don't think it's about a number of income. Obviously, women care if you're a barista, if you're flipping fries. That's not really attractive for a long-term partnership for someone to be a maybe husband. Women do care about that. I think men are different. They will date a barista if she's cute and sweet.
100%.
Yeah. So we're different in that way, but it's less about...
We don't want to date boss girl.
Right. Exactly. But see, women don't... it takes some time unprogramming to realize that. Yeah. That I think sometimes women think that it helps a man to know that she can take care of herself. But it's less about your accomplishments and your achievements and your income and your degrees and this and that. And it's more about being feminine and being supportive and being loyal. I think women sometimes don't realize that.
100%.
As we're showing off our lifestyle and our bags and everything.
What's the Boobgate?
The Boobgate?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the thing that happened.
I missed on this. I was watching your Instagram video and it was telling me, if you don't know what's a Boobgate, you're a happy person.
This was a few months ago, earlier this year, I guess. There was I will say conservative in quotes influencer, a woman who is a Trump supporter, not necessarily conservative, and she was baking a cake in a video, but she had a t-shirt on and she is well endowed, but it was a very tight t-shirt. And then it caused a controversy. You weren't really far back, where there was an argument about whether a t-shirt is modest or whether a t-shirt is not modest.
That's the problem the world has solved?
Yes. Well, I do think it's an interesting reckoning that's happening, not to make it more esoteric than it is, but conservatism is like figuring out, I guess conservatism is always conservatism, but we are having an interesting reckoning on our side, don't you think? Where now we've had populism come in and Trump come in and MAGA come in. And I don't think it was really Trump. I think he was just a symptom. And conservatives, social conservatives, are like reckoning with that of how do we navigate this? Because we are socially conservative and the Republican Party is becoming more liberal in many ways. And there's this fear of being like Democrats, just with the brakes on. Mm-hmm. We just changed our platform around marriage and abortion. And there's fears around that. And that's why I think I see a lot of conservatives being unwilling to vote for Trump, which I think is a bad decision personally, and writing in, other names. And so it is, I think this Boobgate thing is kind of like indicative of that, of like, what does it mean to be conservative in 2024 as a woman with a lot of followers on social media, baking a cake, like what does it mean to be conservative? And are you a Trump supporter or are you a conservative woman? And you can be both, but they're not always necessarily the same thing.
Okay, so answer me so answer me this question. So let's say there's a woman, right? She's married to a man. Marriage, happily married, etc. She's conservative and she's Christian, right? Mm-hmm. Can she post a photo to Instagram in her bikini?
Can she physically?
Yeah,
she physically can. I don't think it's a good idea.
Why? If she's not selling anything.
Because
Bikini, not the lingerie, not in the bedroom, bikini
Right.
on the beach.
Well, I mean, a bikini basically shows off your body, sometimes even more so than lingerie. Oh, no, I mean, first of all, I think it matters if your husband's okay with it. But if your husband's okay with it, I would kind of question your husband a little bit in your relationship. No, I don't think women should be doing that because, because first of all, men are looking. Men are doing stuff with that picture that you might not know. And your body should be for your husband. And I think that means more than just penetration. I mean, is that what it really comes down to? Is just, oh, only my husband can penetrate me? Or is your body for your husband?
Yeah, but that's bikini on the beach. Those two.
No, well,
two things
listen, I
align,
think
right?
there's a difference between I went to the beach in a bikini versus I took a photo of myself in a bikini and posted it on Instagram. I think there's a difference. And I'll be honest with you, when I first became conservative, I had this big spurt of like patriotism for the first time in my life. I loved my country, which is embarrassing to say, especially to an immigrant. You know, I had not liked America before, and then I suddenly realized like America's really great, even though we had this crazy
No other
response to
better
COVID.
country.
I know. And so I got a patriotic bikini and like a American flag bikini, and I posted a photo of myself, which is like something that Trump supporter women do. You know, there's no shortage of that. And eventually, further on, a few months later, like in my walk with Christ and conservatism, I took the photos down because first of all, I think that women get so hurt when the man that they're dating, especially the man they're in a relationship with, follows women online like that. Women who are posting bikini photos, even if she doesn't have an OnlyFans, if she's showing off her body, and you can tell as a woman, like if she's showing off her body, even if she has a ton of followers and maybe doesn't even know that your guy follows her, it's harmful.
And she does not bring any value with those photos, right?
Right.
For instance, if she posts a photo in a bikini, but she gives me value on marketing, and I just follow maybe for the marketing, but that's her strategy.
I would still be like, though, like, why are you
Really?
following her? Well, no, a single man can do what a single man is going to do. But once you get into a relationship, I think a guy should unfollow those. And you know, I think a man should be able to follow like my Instagram, whoever the woman is, without his woman feeling threatened. And that's what I've tried to cultivate. And that's why I took down the bikini photos, because I do think I'm bringing value. And I would like for a man who's taken to be able to follow me without a woman caring. And people think that, oh, this is about being jealous. It's really not. Like when we just had porn, men would maybe have their favorite porn star or whatever, but they wouldn't like know little details about her day, like where she ate for lunch and her outfit of the day and her outfit at the gym. When you follow someone, you like cultivate this like quasi pseudo relationship with them. So when men are following these Instagram models, even if she doesn't know that he exists, it feels kind of like cheating in a way, because you're looking at her, you're getting turned on, and every time you open the app, you're getting turned on by a woman who's not me. So I think...
And you compare.
Yeah. So men shouldn't partake in it, especially when they're in a relationship, and women shouldn't, especially when they're in a relationship. If we're going to be part of a sisterhood, which we always like to talk about, do your sister a favor and don't post the bikini photo, because you get hurt when your guy, when you're in a relationship, looks at the bikini photo. So just don't post it. And certainly a woman who's married shouldn't. For both sides, for the men who are looking for her husband, her body should be for her husband, for herself. You know, you can't ever take those back, even though you can delete them like I did, but you can't take them back once they're out there. And, you know, it does present a certain image where it isn't respecting you. Sometimes I look at these women who are married to these men, and they're gorgeous, but they're showing off their bodies. And I feel like as a man, I don't know, I'm not a man, but wouldn't you be a little mortified if your wife was like showing off her body?
So
A bunch?
my wife is a fitness trainer, right? And she does that thing. So she posts from time to time. She posts photos from the beach in the bikini, for instance, and she's selling, like, for instance, a webinar or program, etc. So I'm not jealous at all, because that's our business. That's what we do. If I had an option not to do that, and she said, I still want to do it, I wouldn't have any problems with that, because I know her intentions, and I know that intentions of doing that post or posting the picture in a bikini on a beach is not to seduce someone, is not to get someone's money for the crypto project, and etc. So I'm not jealous of that. The second question is, I'm not going to ask whether you're single or not, but let's say you're not single, you're in a relationship. Let's say you have a husband, right? And you find out that he he watches porn, is it gross to you as a woman or not? Or is it kind of a norm?
Honestly, it's not gross to me as a woman. But I do also have concerns about it.
It's not gross because you know that 99% of men do that.
Do it, yeah.
That's the only reason. Mm-hmm. And if the statistics were the vice versa, only like 10% do that, would that be gross to you? That your husband is like in that 10%?
No, yeah, I guess that would be weird. You'd be like, oh, why are you in the minority? But also, I have in my past looked at porn. So, I mean, how can I judge too?
As a man, it's very hard for us to understand that women have porn addiction as well. We always think that it's only male stuff, which is not. It's the women's vice as well.
No, I mean, I never suffered from an addiction, but certainly, yeah, like we're all in our little boxes and, having a relationship yet less, and porn is right there. And, a woman doesn't get turned on visually in the way that a man does, but you can watch something and imagine, or that stimulates a thought or a scenario or something like that. And yeah, women do watch porn. I think these things, like you just said with your situation with your wife, I think these things kind of have to be worked out between couples. I mean, obviously, ideally, I don't think God wants us to watch porn. It's not a good thing. But
100%.
If it's, there's also a difference between watching porn sometimes or watching porn together and an addiction. Maybe that's wrong of me to say. Maybe that's just inviting in the enemy. I don't know. But men are human, women are human. We struggle with these things. I struggle with the thing that we just talked about, not posting for attention, not posting for male attention. That's what's addictive to women. And I think social media has heightened that in us. Mm-hmm. Like women love male attention. And when you post a photo on Instagram as just a decent looking woman, you get a lot of attention, and I don't think that's healthy for women's brains. And if you're feeling down about yourself, you just post a photo and you can put a filter on it too, and you will get an influx of male attention.
But if you don't, let's say you posted the same picture 6 months ago and you got 1,000 likes, and now you posted kind of a similar picture and you only got 200.
That'll mess with your head too. Yeah.
Big time.
So all of it is really unhealthy. And I struggle with that. And so I would hope for a man, listen, for the right man, I would just delete all of social media, honestly, even though I am very prolific on there. But if a man, I would want a man to understand that I struggle with that sometimes. I struggle with, looking a certain way or doing certain things for attention. And I would understand that, yes, men have this proclivity towards porn, so we're all human. But at the end of the day, I think probably none of this is good. Posting for attention on Instagram or looking at porn.
What was your biggest vice in your life?
My biggest vice in my life? I don't know. I have in the past, I don't drink anymore. I have in the past struggled with alcohol, which is just everywhere, and I have alcoholism in my family too. So it's hard. What else?
But have you realized once you got off the alcohol and it's sober for 3, 6, 9, 12 months, you feel, you don't even just feel amazing. You feel like a free human being.
Yeah. I do not have a desire to become drunk anymore.
The same thing is with pornography. Especially there is it's not a big movement yet, but I believe it's getting a lot of attention right now. So male, especially youngsters, 20 to 25-year-olds, they tend to stop watching pornography. And once they do that, once they realize that it does not control them and they can be without watching pornography 6, 12 months, etc., they realize how bad that was.
Yeah.
But you only realize that. How big of a chain did you have around your neck once you do those 6, 9, 12 months of sobriety from pornography?
It's like there's freedom and discipline.
Yes.
People think all this stuff is so puritanical, what we're talking about, and restrictive. But it's actually very liberating.
It's vice versa. It's like they're saying non-Christians or atheists, they say, so your God, Jesus Christ, forbids you almost everything, right? The vice versa. It makes life much more easier. The Bible, it's basically a book of rules. How should you live? How should you build a family? How should you have a relationship with God? How should you raise your children? Once you read the book, you get all the answer. You got these guidelines how to live your life. It's way much easier than just watching Netflix, watching TV shows, watching Instagram models, or
Watching porn.
or just porn.
Yeah.
Because this is distorted reality. But we tend to say, no, it's not. Pornography is sex. It's not sex at all. It's distorted sex. It's perverted sex.
Right.
And the studies show us that the people tend, especially male, tend to start watching pornography with just heterosexual normal sex. Then they get harder and harder and harder and harder with the BDSM and all that stuff. So it's just a matter of time when we get perverted.
Yeah. Yeah, I've also heard about going down a rabbit hole of like trans porn and then men feeling as though they might be.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yes. I'm sure it's, maybe we're still looking into it. But yeah, that men will come upon porn and then be like, oh, I'm trans, as opposed to feeling it when they're younger, which is interesting. Yeah.
But how do you even know that if you're watching pornography that this woman is a woman, not a trans, right? they do surgeries right now. You can go to Thailand. There are lots of trans women, trans men, trans women. How do they call
What
it?
are they called? Lady boys in Thailand?
And they definitely look like women.
Yeah.
So every time, for Americans, it's not common to go on a vacation to Thailand, right? But for us Europeans, especially Eastern Europe and Russian, Ukrainians, Lithuanians, we used to go to Thailand. And there is always a rule of thumb. When you go to Thailand, do not sleep with local women there. You never know.
They still have their male body parts, or they've cut them off. You would know when they took the pants down, right?
Or you would know after sex.
After? How is that possible? Oh, you mean...
She will tell you that I used to be a boy.
So she has a
vagina.
Surgery. Yeah. Ooh.
That's devastating. That's a PTSD 100%.
That's disgusting.
That's disgusting for 100%.
Yeah.
So I believe if there wasn't modern feminism, there wouldn't be guys like Andrew Tate, right? So once he said this thing, so he said that if a girl goes out at night dressed in a short skirt, for instance, and she gets raped, that's her problem. Would you agree with that?
He said that?
He made an analogy like you would never go to a bad area of your town with a Rolex, right?
Yeah. No, I don't fully. I do take issue with he hits on truth so much, and then he says non-truths. No, it's the fault of her, and people will be upset at this. It is obviously the fault of the rapist, obviously,
yes.
But she has to take culpability as well in that situation, because it's kind of like. What I always say is it's like being a pedestrian on a busy street. Like you have the legal right of way, and if something happens, you can sue and whatever else, but that won't help you if you're dead or really hurt. So the driver should be looking out for you, but he could be drunk, whatever. In a mashup, you're going to die with the vehicle. You're weaker. So you need to look out for yourself. And that's kind of what it's like to be a woman, especially in certain areas or dressed a certain way. Why would you not? And, again, neoliberals always say this stuff about let's teach our sons to not rape instead of our daughters. No, we'll teach your daughter to worry about herself, because sin is always going to be here. Evil's always going to be here. Predatory men are always going to be here. You shouldn't be relying on just every random man around you to not be a rapist, although the majority are good men and not rapists. But you should take care of yourself. So, yeah, a woman in that situation, whether she's intoxicated or dressed a certain way, it bears some culpability. We're never going to live in a world where a woman could just walk down a street naked and just not be we are
Maybe she's
human
naked,
animals.
She's not going to be touched because she's crazy, but I'm not going to touch you.
Yeah, in LA, it's like that's a sign of the crazies.
So in a sense, he's kind of right. Yeah,
well, I took issue with, maybe it wasn't a direct quote, although he's very abrasive, with that's her problem. Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I want to say there was a video you posted on Instagram when there was a couple sitting in a cafe and a criminal.
Oh, this was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, so
that was very controversial.
So you suggest that this couple, the male in that couple, should protect that woman?
Well, I've amended my viewpoint a little bit, only because, and we don't have the clip, so it's hard to say.
I'm going to show it to you.
Oh, okay. Well, so I guess the woman's cell phone or purse or whatever was being stolen. No, a man maybe shouldn't intervene when he could risk his life for a material object. But 100% a man should intervene when a woman is being attacked or a child. I will stand by that. I would say the same thing about my own husband. If I'm ever blessed with one, I would say the same thing about my brother, my dad, who's elderly now. I firmly believe that. And all I got from men in the comments, almost all I got from men, and maybe you can tell me more about this because I do see the other side, was I take care of my wife and my daughters only. And to that, I would say that if other men have your same attitude, when your daughter and your wife is out alone without you, which will happen because we don't live in the Middle East, I hope other men don't have your attitude. And I personally, I have been, speaking of crazy homeless, I have been chased by homeless people in LA, like literally chased, full out running, screaming for help.
In LA?
In LA, and worried about my life, which sounds crazy, but that's the state of things in LA. And not a single man, and there were men, I ran to a park and there were men there, not one stopped to help. And I get it, I'm a random woman, but clearly I'm not crazy, clearly I'm in distress, and nobody stopped to help. And we see these viral videos of like people just filming assaults, filming rape, nobody does anything. And I understand that men feel worried. Like Daniel Penny's trial is going on right now. He's the one that accidentally killed that black man who was harassing people on the New York subway. He's in trial right now. I don't know if that's going to go well. So I get the fear because you could be prosecuted, especially if the skin colors are wrong, or killed. Yeah. And you could lose your freedom. So I don't know what the correct answer is, but all I know is that if good men, basically, anytime a woman is safe in this world and not being attacked, it's because of men. Yeah. It's because of men either not attacking her or stepping in to intervene, which is obviously far more rare. We owe all of our safety to men. And all I'm saying is that if we allow the Democrat policies, and you could be killed, which has nothing to do with Democrat policies, but I guess it does because we allow criminals to just run rampant too. If we allow Democrat policies to make men less of men, then I get, they win, I guess, because we're all too afraid, because you might be prosecuted, because you might die, so the criminals just run rampant. And that's just the way it is, I guess. And, women are now the more vulnerable ones. They're always the more vulnerable ones, so they can just get attacked. We owe all of our safety to men. So I would just say that if a man sees, and how often does this actually happen, but I guess more so in blue cities, I do think a man should step in if he sees a woman being attacked. Now you can tell me what you think as a husband and father.
So in order to comment on that, I'm gonna get back to the issue that I mentioned in the start of our podcast, right? Remember I said that in Russia and Lithuania there is a common thing like domestic violence, right? So men should be taught right from the childhood that if you ever touch another woman, if you beat her up, her brother, her father would knock on your door and knock out your teeth. If you know that, you will never do that. Because I know that she has a father, she has a friend, she has a ex-boyfriend, she has someone else that will definitely beat the shit out of me.
Yeah.
So if people on the streets would know the same thing, if I attack a woman and it's daylight and there are multiple men, they will beat the shit out of me, you would never do that.
That's a good point, yeah.
So I believe that we have to do both ways. Teach our kids, especially our sons, to behave and to control their emotions and not to be scumbaggs, and teach other men that are grown up that we have to stand up for women,
right?
Especially if there is no gun. That man and other male that were in that cafe, they should have broken that guy's
And the clip
teeth.
In particular, it was kind of funny because in the clip, I don't think it's in America because the voiceover is a language I don't understand, but there's a young man with his girlfriend or whatever, and they just like grab her purse. He grabs her purse or something, and they like run over and then watch.
Yeah,
so it's just kind of odd.
Take a chair and broke it.
Yeah. You could have done that.
Neck.
Yeah, and that's what I took issue with, is that he like runs with her, and she could have run on her own, and then they sit back and watch, and he makes a point of grabbing her bag. It's just kind of odd to me. But I also see men's point that you feel this. You even mentioned a woman has her husband, her father, her brother, and we've lost a lot of that, with fatherlessness, etc. So when it's just a random woman and you don't know her from Adam, I would hope that a man would have some kind of natural instinct to step in, but I can understand maybe if he wouldn't, because everything's so backwards, and it's not his wife, it's not his sister. So what does he care,
Listen, if you're my colleague, right? I know you, for instance, for 5 years.
Yeah.
And on Monday you show up at the work and you have this black eye. And I ask you what happened, you tell me, my boyfriend did this and that, or my husband did this and that. I take 2 other colleagues, because I don't know how big of a boyfriend you have, right? We knock on your boyfriend's door and we beat the shit out of this guy. So he learns the lesson.
But you wouldn't have
never
any fear of doing that. I know this is hypothetical, but in a place like LA and in like a big blue city, you wouldn't have any.
Why?
Because of the way that the laws are catering to criminals.
That's the problem. Because this is the same problem that Europe right now has with the immigrants. Immigrants rape, kill, steal, especially they harass women. And if for instance, local Irish, Italian, Spaniards stand up, they get prosecuted.
Yeah.
That's madness.
Right.
That's why they stand and they watch.
Right.
That's what they do.
And that's a huge problem because at a certain point, even though I still fundamentally fall on my side, I can see what goes through a man's mind, when he has a family especially and he has people counting on him at home. And again, if the skin color is wrong, you're in even more trouble. If you're white looking and the guy is black looking, then it's like a whole other element. So yeah, I mean, it's a scary time.
But it can be vice versa. If a black guy stands up, he can be prosecuted as well.
That's true.
He's a black guy. Maybe you have some kind of a state or a prosecutor that is freaking racist.
That's true too.
Till in 2024. He's just a scumbag.
Yeah.
Women, most of the time, women do not understand, just like we don't understand you. You don't understand a lot of males as well. So if you ever get beat up by a male, by your boyfriend or husband, if you forgive him, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. Because our psychology works this way. So I beat her up, I asked for forgiveness, and she forgave me. Okay, so no problem. It's just a matter of time, but I'm going to touch you another time. That's 100%.
Yeah.
You should never do that. And everyone is watching, you should never do that. And I would even say, before you marry or before you get into a long relationship, maybe you should, by default, you should say, I would never tolerate if you ever touch me, right? Just in case, for your boyfriend or for your future husband to understand that if you ever touch me, I'm going to leave you and my friend or someone, or I'm going to file a suit against you, or my friends, they're going to just beat the shit out of you. So a man realizes from day one, there is not even an option. This option is not on the table. If I get mad, if you cheat on me, right? If you cheat on me, I would never touch you because I know that the consequences are going to be very harsh.
Yeah. And that's a good word. That's a tough pill to swallow, I think. I think women are very forgiving when we are in love and when we love a man. But
that's a very common issue in my country, in Russia and Ukraine. He loves me. There's a freaking even saying that if he beats the shit out of you, that means he loves you. That's the most crazy thing that you can think of.
Yeah.
So Natalie, I had a blast with you. I believe we talked a lot about the men, women, and all the social stuff. The last question on my podcast is always the same. Let's have two assumptions with you. Assumption number one is the President of the United States is the most powerful human being on planet Earth. Assumption number two is you become one. You become the President of the U.S. Once you do so, you have this secret service at your disposal that knows all the answers in the world, right? They know everything. They got all the data, everything. And you have a possibility to ask them a question. You ask them, they give you an honest answer. What would be your first question?
Oh. This feels like a cop-out. No, but my first question, especially given everything we talked about, is would be, how do we fix this?
What exactly?
How do we fix it? I mean,
the world, America?
Yeah, America, all of it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. How do we fix America? Is that can I ask all of that? I don't know. That's a hard question. I just want, I don't know. Well, you tell me.
You've got so many questions?
I do have a lot of questions, but I feel, especially right now, a couple of days before the election, I don't know when this is coming out, I just feel so much anxiety, and I don't like the direction America is going in. So I would really want to know, do we have hope? Are we going to make it? Can we fix it? How do we fix it?
Let's say you ask them about the Epstein or P. Diddy, and you ask them to give you the last names, the list, right? Yeah. And they give you 5 pages with the last names, with the Hollywood actress, maybe some politicians, billionaires, millionaires, etc. You as a president, would you expose it? Would you expose this list to the public?
I would.
So do you think that humanity and people, especially here in the US, they can handle the truth?
I mean, I'm pretty biased because I don't understand this cult of celebrity. I can handle the truth. Some of these people are really obsessed with some of these famous people. So no, if you're really, I'm like, look, maybe it could be a guy I like. It could be Trump. I don't think it is, but he could be on the list. And yeah, I guess that would be hard. But no, obviously it needs to be exposed because we're talking about a huge thing. We still don't have answers about it. Just like President Trump's first assassination attempt, we still don't really have answers. We live in a very bizarre time where we don't even get an official narrative anymore. And it's just like they were flying a plane to have sex with minors on an island. And then he, quote unquote, killed himself. She's still around and nobody knows who was on the plane. And then, of course, it's always, oh, Trump was on the plane. It comes out every few months. Oh, he was on the plane. Look at the court documents. But it's like, which leads me to believe he probably wasn't on the plane, or at least, doing anything nefarious. So who was it? And I think, sunlight is the best disinfectant. We do need to know. And personally, I'm praying for the day when Hollywood falls, Hollywood is a scourge on our world, both geographically, if you've ever been to Hollywood, California, but also as an ideal, as a place, as a thing. I'm just so sick of it. It's disgusting. And even if all these satanic things aren't happening, which maybe they are, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about it. It's just awful. It's awful culturally. All of the Hollywood actors are insane, and they come out and they speak about things they don't understand, and they talk like they're authorities when they're not.
Climate change, but I do fly private.
Right? Yes, Leonardo DiCaprio just came out and endorsed Kamala because of climate change, and it's just like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like I said, and the hypocrisy is crazy. And I'm really not. I am a proud Trump supporter. I don't think he was on the planes, but I'm not really married to anybody. I have my family. They weren't on the planes. I'm not really oh my God, this would be devastating. So yeah, I mean, I certainly we can handle the truth. And the thing of it is, I've realized now that nothing's going back to normal. It was like 9/11 happened when I was younger, and then it feels like I lost innocence and the country lost some innocence, and nothing was ever the same again. 2020 and the last 4 years have been the same. Trump. They keep saying this is going to end with, it won't end with Trump, Trump,
There's no way back.
Right.
Media is done.
No, yes. And I'm ready for legacy media to fall. I don't think we can have free and fair elections until legacy media is done, because it's just a propaganda arm for the Democrat Party, and people are sick of being lied to. And I think the temperature is getting so heated. That's a whole other conversation. So I'm ready for a lot of these institutions fall. I don't want to say burn it all down, but metaphorically burn it all down, because nothing's going back to normal. And the last 10 years, and I was asleep for 4 of them, I guess maybe 6 of them really, I've been awake, for lack of a better word, for 4 years. It's been crazy. It's been crazy, probably longer than that, but I was out to lunch, and it's just not sustainable. And we do deserve the truth. And that's the only way certain things are going to be fixed. I don't think it begins and ends with the Diddy list or the Epstein list or whatever was going on there. But I think we deserve answers as the American people,
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank
By
you.
the way, you've been to Berkeley to speak about living the Democratic Party?
Yeah, last week.
And you're alive.
I know. Surprisingly.
Did you have a lot of
security? It was a close
security?
call. We did not have security.
You're crazy.
I shouldn't say that.
Did you pray before
police. Yes, I always. Yeah. We actually decided randomly at the last minute to go out with a table and with signs and stand in the quad, which was not planned beforehand. And we interacted. But, we had some good conversations. Obviously, a lot of people were triggered. And then that night we had standing room only at the event, So I don't know if any minds were changed, but I think it's important to speak the truth because the truth won't be preserved unless we speak it, right? Kids won't know it. Young people in college campuses on Berkeley won't know it unless we speak it. So whether I change someone's mind, maybe I'm planting a seed that takes fruit later on.
Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you for coming. I had a blast. I believe the audience is going to have a blast. I believe there is going to be some wild stuff in the comments, especially women. They're going to be upset, but women, we do this because we love you. I love
that.
Women.
Is true. Yeah, I'm a conservative and a Christian because I love women.
Male women. I don't know. We're good?
Yeah.
From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank you for watching this whole episode. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. Leave a comment below and share this episode with your friends, peers, and loved ones. May God, Jesus Christ, bless you and your whole family.